Going into this year, I think we can all feel this to a degree. There is an acceleration happening. And the acceleration that I'm feeling into is one of awakening. It's not an acceleration of doing, even though that can come from awakening. It's an acceleration of opportunity. And so 2026, if 2025 was kind of the initiation of some of that acceleration, 2026 feels like to me momentum. We're hitting this cadence of like, ooh, if I can catch this wave and ride this wave, I'm going to be taken to experiences and deepenings and transformation that I could never have predicted. There's no amount of manifestation and visualization that could have predicted this. That's what 2026 feels like to me. And yes, there's some heaviness because with change and transformation on a collective level, there's always an invitation there. And we talk about this a lot. You can either ride the wave or you swim up current. And swimming up current is going to be exhausting. And you really aren't going to be able to do it anymore in so many areas of life. And I think with what I'm noticing is that any lingering heaviness, it's all coming up because we have to face some of those elements of self in order to be light enough to move forward. And so this is always kind of a theme of spiritual development. Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of Soul Podcast. Happy to have you here. Today, we're going to kick off 2026 with you and go a bit into the energetics that we're feeling as we move into this new year, and also give you a mini practice to connect with a elevated state of being that's calling to you. So this is something that I do personally every year to connect with some sort of energetic that is calling to me. And so I'll walk you through what I do, and this will be a way for you to kind of approach resolutions and goals in a different way. And instead of you going towards it, inviting it to come towards you. And I'm joined today with Kat. Welcome back, Kat. Good to have you.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So new year, new year, new you. New year, similar you. New year, transforming you. So first, maybe we'll talk a little bit about what we're feeling energetically as we move into this new phase. And I've always thought that January is a particularly challenging, interesting month. One of the reasons why I think that is because, at least in our hemisphere, we're still in the dead of winter. So going from December and the kind of slowdown and the intensity of family time and whatever that has ignited or shifted for you, then moving into January, which is supposed to be and is kind of culturally engineered as this hard reset and new phase. And that transition can be a bit jarring. So if there's anything that you take away from this episode, it would be to give yourself some grace during this time, to take the pressure off, and to kind of sink back into winter a little bit more, and know that you don't have to have it all figured out in January, and take your time. That being said, one of the things I'm feeling is that going into this year, I think we can all feel this to a degree. There is an acceleration happening. And the acceleration that I'm feeling into is one of awakening. It's not an acceleration of doing, even though that can come from awakening. It's an acceleration of opportunity. And so 2026, if 2025 was kind of the initiation of some of that acceleration, 2026 feels like to me we're hitting a sustained momentum.
Mm.
We're hitting this cadence of like, ooh, if I can catch this wave and ride this wave, I'm going to be taken to experiences and deepenings and transformation that I could never have predicted. There's no amount of manifestation and visualization that could have predicted this. That's what 2026 feels like to me. And yes, there's some heaviness because with change and transformation on a collective level, there's always an invitation there. And we talk about this a lot. You can either ride the wave or you swim up current. And swimming up current is going to be exhausting. And you really aren't going to be able to do it anymore in so many areas of life. And I think with what I'm noticing is that any lingering heaviness, and this could be things that you were not even aware of a week ago, but you're like, ooh, I didn't know that was there. It's all coming up because we have to face some of those elements of self in order to be light enough to move forward. And so this is always kind of a theme of spiritual development, but it's really, from what I'm feeling, becoming a highlight going into 2026, especially the first half of the year, maybe even the first 3 months. Is there anything else that you need to leave behind in order to ride this wave? Because 2026, 2027, 2028 energetically feels like a extremely powerful portal. I think many of you who are listening, this is why you're here in this incarnation, is for the next 3 to 5 years. Like, this is why we're here. I can feel that. So you're being called forward. You're being called to lead, to create, to be in the presence of you could bring harmony to that which is out of harmony. So there's so much opportunity here. And I get excited. And I'm also not trying to like spiritually bypass the challenges that we're all facing. There is that, and then there is this opportunity. I think that's what I'm trying to call our attention to, is to focus more and more on what that opportunity is going into this year. And to be a little less consumed by what isn't working and get a little bit more consumed by what is possible. What do you want to create? As Steve Jobs said, and I saw this interview recently, he said something that most people don't realize is that life is meant to be co-created with. And on this, we don't agree on everything with Steve Jobs, but on this, I do agree. And, you know, he had read Autobiography of a Yogi, and he had quite a spiritual foundation to how it is that he created that I don't think many people appreciate. They see the kind of the intensity of him and they're like, that's how he did things. I think he was a little bit more tapped in than we give him credit for. And so when you start to look at life as this co-creative force, that you can have an impact. And I want us to, especially in the spiritual community, start to, in this year, really move out of apathy and like, we can't make an impact, and really move into activation through your awakening to be that way shower. So I went on and a little bit of a rant there, but for you,
No, I
Kat,
loved it. I loved it. I was eating it up.
yeah, ooh, the year of the way shower. That
Mhm. Ooh, I love that.
resonates.
Yeah, there's so much that I think you said that resonates with what I'm feeling and what I think so many in this space are feeling, like the collective right now. And a few things I want to underscore. For one, like you mentioned, culturally, we're pushed to do more, to speed up at this time of the year through, I think, starting like, mid-November all the way through mid-January. We're culturally primed to do more, get more done, that final push of the year. And in reality, what this time is actually meant to be used for is to introspect, to create space, to reflect on on the year and take inventory of what worked, take inventory of what felt aligned, take inventory of where you felt in harmony as you're co-creating, where you felt out of harmony, where felt light, where you felt heavy, like taking that inventory so that you can move forward into the next year clearer, more grounded in where you want to go next, what you want to create next. And so much of what this time is, if not that, is a distraction. It's a distraction from creating that space. We're inundated with consumption and it's beautiful. We're around a lot of family, but that also inevitably creates a lot of trigger and potential regression and feeling of being, farther from self, from center. So instead, really using this time, and I feel like at this day and age, it's almost like a radical decision to go in the opposite direction of what we're being told to do, to instead of just subscribing to doing more, the final push, make New Year's goals, hit the gym day one of January. Like
Yeah.
instead of doing all of that, saying, actually, I'm going to go a little slower. I'm actually going to take a little bit more time for myself. I'm going to go this way instead of this way where we're all being told to go. It feels like a radical shift, paradigm shift for a lot of us because we're so inundated with that norm. So I think that's so important as a foundation for talking about moving into the new year. It's like, give yourself space because otherwise it just goes so fast. You're in the new year and you're already going. If you're not placing your intention on what it is that you want to co-create, then you're not assuming the driver's seat of your life. You're more passive and it's so much easier to fall into the life is happening to me as opposed to I'm creating this. This is the vision. This is what I know I'm here to do and I'm going to do it. So definitely want
Mm.
to underscore that. I think so many of us have also felt this acceleration of time. I've had this conversation with so many people feeling like, as we move into 2025 or come to an end of 2025, move into 2026, time just keeps speeding up. And I've heard a lot of different like schools of thought around why that is. And this year, 2025, a lot of what, to your point, it felt like the initiation of like anything
Mm.
that's not aligned will be stripped away. It will fall away. And that might be painful. I've witnessed a lot of relationships come to an end this year. I've
Yeah.
witnessed a lot of people's jobs dissolve out of nowhere. I've witnessed, just a lot of these transitions, moving from somewhere to somewhere, like a lot of, if it's not aligned, it's not going to remain. And I think to your point, moving into 2026, it's going to be a similar thread, but similar to the awakening process. It's like the beginning, that initiation portal of the process is a lot more painful and jarring and disorienting. But then we have the opportunity to learn how to navigate that dance with the universe and tune into if this is aligned, if it's not, and kind of decide for ourselves instead of waiting for it to be stripped away, taking that action of our own accord, like tuning into that discernment and deciding this isn't aligned. I'm actually going to remove myself from it instead of it having to be stripped away in this really painful, exhaustive process, right? So it feels like 2025 was this initiation and stripping, and 2026 we're invited into more of like of our power, of our own knowing and our trusting of like, I know what is aligned. I know what I want to create. I know what feels good. I know what feels harmonious. I'm going to move towards that. And anything that doesn't align with that, I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to
Mm-hmm.
let it dissipate, to let it dissolve. And in that, we are much more powerful. So the potential of 2026, to your point, is much greater because if we allowed for the initiation to move through us in 2025, in 2026, we're so much more equipped. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if we're willing to kind of hone our discernment, to step into that seat of the creator, then we're much more equipped in 2026 to dance.
Love it. There's so much that came up for me in what you were saying. I'm really seeing that visual of a wave.
Hmm.
And part of what we've been through is seeing a big wave behind us coming in the distance. And there's been this feeling of anticipation, preparation, and fear. Of like, we can all feel that something big's coming. We can even see it now. We have an idea of the form that it's taking. But then the question is, what do you do when that wave meets you? And everybody's going to have their own answer to that. But I think what we're being called to think about is if you surf it, there's that initial moment. My husband is a surfer, so I hear about this all the time. But there's this initial moment of like, oh shit, that's a bigger wave than I anticipated. It's even bigger up close. It seems not too big far away.
Hmm.
And then the initiation is the choice that you're making. And sometimes that choice is conscious, and sometimes that choice is a higher level choice that maybe you're not consciously aware of, but your soul decided to experience this and to be here at this time for this reason. And so there's that moment where you position your board, you position your resources, and you find your angle and you allow the momentum that's naturally already occurring to carry you. And there's that initial moment when you're getting into the wave that's one of the more important moments because you're finding your balance. You're like, okay, you're descending, you're at a steep angle, the momentum picks up quick, and you're diving down into the experience. And then you're weaving and kind of watching all elements of the experience to see where do you place yourself? Where do you respond? Where do you fall back? Where do you surrender? And so we're kind of like taking that steep moment into the experience. And in 2026, we're finding our barrel. We're finding that experience. And when you find the angles and the surrender, there's magic in that. You're one with it.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. I'm not a surfer, but I have like surfed and I've caught a couple waves in my life. And that feeling of essentially what I haven't hit a barrel, but when you are standing and you're no longer, you're like, oh, I've got it. I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
I'm
know,
doing it.
I'm not going to fall. I got it.
I
You
got
know,
it. Yeah.
that is the feeling which we're moving into of like that initial when the momentum's picking up, that's when you're most likely to fall. That's when you're most likely to get
Hmm.
overwhelmed, dive off the board and abort and be like, I'm out.
Totally. Yep.
And when you drop in and you feel that like, oh, I've got my balance. I'm in tune with every tiny movement of the water beneath me and of my board, and I've got this. There's so much ease, and there's that moment of just complete presence,
Mhm.
and that metaphorically is what we're moving into if we're willing to take that, to decide to take the wave. It's all like you
Exactly.
said, it's an invitation. It's all if we're
Yeah.
willing to trust ourselves, to be okay if we decide to jump off the wave, and
Hmm.
trust ourselves that we know how to eventually stand up. Really taking this metaphor far.
We're taking it so far. I'm going to take it
Yeah.
even further. Waves, these waves come in sets. So there's a series of them, right?
Yeah.
And so if you miss the first one, a lot of times surfers will wait for that like second or third one
Mhm.
because they know they won't get clobbered by what's behind it. And so we could take it even further and say, that's the rhythm of the heart space
Mm,
really that we're talking about. That's the frequency of being in tune with your timing of life. And when it's right on some level.
mhm.
That on some level when that invitation is coming towards you and that you have an opportunity. And so I think my reminder here would be to make sure if you're not taking the wave, you examine why that is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because there's I there's something here about boldness in 2026, like creators and people who are way showers that are leading the way in what we desperately need. We're in a crisis of inspiration. We were talking about this the other day on a podcast episode, and I loved that term, crisis of inspiration. You can feel it. Everybody's looking for, where can I find some inspiration? And the coolest thing about this journey that we're all on is that ultimately you're the inspiration. You taking that wave, you doing the thing that stretches you, that breeds additional capacity, and life starts to align more and more with that. And so, yes, it's okay. You don't have to take the wave, and make sure you know why you didn't. What fears were there? What unworthiness was there? What was stopping you? And that's all valid. But the beautiful thing about doing your practice, and I would encourage everybody, especially in January and all the time, but make sure you're doing your daily practice, because this is where you gain these tools.
Mhm.
This is where you can have the space to listen to when it is that the wave is coming and where it's coming
Yeah.
and what you need to leave behind. If you're hearing this and you're like, it sounds very esoteric. How do I tap into these things? That's in your practice. That's in your meditation, in your breath work, in the stillness. That's how you hear that rhythm. Yeah, what were you
Yeah.
going to say?
No, I was going to say that that's exactly what was coming up for me too, is that, as we move into the new year and, yes, it's important to set goals to some degree. I think we could even redefine moving into goals, but essentially I think it's important to get clear on what it is you want to expand into. And
Mhm.
when you do that, your practice will also show you where the fear exists, because with any expansion, there's inevitably going to be some sort of resistance that your ego creates to keep you safe. So,
Always. Yeah.
and if we aren't taking the time to just acknowledge the fear, just see it, hold it, welcome it in our practice, then it will subconsciously, unconsciously self-sabotage us and keep us
Mhm.
from reaching where we want to go, from expanding into the potential that we know that we feel is meant for us. And it will keep us contracted, keep us small. And to our previous points, like as time is accelerating, as we're being almost like forcefully invited to step into our potential, into our purpose, into our specific, energetic contribution to the collective, as we're being more asked to step into that, it feels even more imperative that we take the time to acknowledge the fear that will keep us from getting there, because
Mhm.
the consequence of not getting there feels bigger now. It feels like
Totally.
the
Yeah.
collective is moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And it's up to us whether we say yes to that or continue to stay small. So our practice is everything, especially when we get clear on what it is that we want to expand into. Like that's just one part of the formula. The other part is creating a lot of space to simply notice where the stories exist that tell you why you can't do it, why it's not meant for you, why somebody else is going to be better at that and it's meant for them, not you. Like all of the stories that are there and your practice, presence, truth, letting in, creating space for more light to come in is the only way to dissolve that over time. It takes a returning over and over again to that truth to eventually, dissipate the fear to the point where you feel stable and safe enough to move towards that expansion, to take the small steps, to take one step at a time. And that's how you create. That's how you get from point A to point B in our dimension.
Mm.
You have to take steps to overcome fear and get there. It doesn't just, I mean, we can contemplate, but it doesn't necessarily just materialize until we on a frequency level have entrained with that
Mhm.
frequency of what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, and what you just said brought back to me something I heard in meditation this morning, which
Oh.
is interesting, and of course, it's all connected. I love it so much. But I was in meditation and I went into my channel, which is a connection with interdimensional light beings, and they were talking about this. They were saying really what's important here is clarity of intention. So you mentioned clarity, so that clarity of intention and surrender. Those are the two components that are required for us to be able to really tap into our potential as creators in this dimension of space and time. And that's interesting because, and it sounds somewhat obvious, but in practice, it's challenging. So, clarity of intention, it's like beyond visualization. Because when we talk, we're kind of getting into a manifestation conversation here, but that clarity of intention is most people don't know where they want to go. And there's a balance here, right? Of knowing where it is you want to go. And you'll notice the other part of this equation is surrender. And so that clarity of intention, and we do a lot of this work in SoulPod, but it's getting really, really tapped into the experience of something after it's happened and getting all of the components of that intention clear in your mind first, and then letting it go. I think this is where we get tripped up a lot when we were thinking about manifestation is we get a little hyper focused. In the beginning, this is good. Get hyper focused on that intention, on that North Star. Where is it that you want to go? And then feeling, so transitioning from the mind and the thought into the feeling body. What is the feeling that you get from that experience? Most of us don't know what that is. And the reason that's important is because when you know what that is, you know why it is that you want to experience that. Is it freedom? Is it vitality? Is it awe? You want to be in awe of your life. What does that look like? And then you can start to jockey between the experience itself and the thought of the experience and the feeling of the experience, because ultimately that's why you want the thing, right? Or the experience is because of how it makes you feel expansive, abundant, free, relief. But then what they were really harping on was the surrender part. And I was trying to understand what kind of more deeply what they meant by that. And it's a falling back into the experience. And what is the opposite of that? Okay, the opposite of it is resistance. And that's also where we get kind of caught up. And what does that resistance mean? It means when you feel that intention, when you're in that space, when you're thinking about it, you're feeling it. What's coming up? What's not allowing you to just surrender into that reality? There's something there. There's always something there, or else you'd be experiencing it, to be really spiritually blunt with you right now, which apparently I'm feeling today.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like your spiritual older sister. So there's always something there. And so that's part of the excavation is what is between you and surrender to that experience? Is it Is it worthiness or unworthiness, rather? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it shame? Is it guilt? And so having to confront those elements of resistance will help you get to that place of surrender, because ultimately surrender is a falling back into life, and it is a higher frequency. So to kind of elevate yourself into the frequency of receiving, you have to be in surrender in order to access that. So it's interesting that came forward. That was meant to be shared today, for sure. So think about that. And we'll work a little bit on this today. That intention, the clarity, and then the surrender and releasing anything that's standing between you and that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think surrender gets confused with passivity in
Mm.
oftentimes. And I think what's so important about the formula you're sharing essentially is that without intention, surrender is passivity. But with intention, surrender becomes such a powerful tool of creation. It's like the same word can either lends to intentional creation, to your point, or it lends to this backseat, you know, passive way of moving through life of just, well, I'm surrendered. I'm just letting whatever comes into my life come into my life and whatever, yes, and without intention, then you're removing yourself from the equation. You're removing your own soul's knowing of what it is that you're meant to do, what your own clarity, your own, that gut knowing, that heart knowing of what is meant for you, visions that you have, insights that you have of where you're meant to go. You're not giving that the power that it's meant to have. Your intention is so powerful. So when you get clear on where you want to go and why you want to go there, to your point, by sitting in the feeling of what it brings you, because the why is so important. If the why is,
Hmm.
if we want to create something from a place of creating status, just so that what's the word? Reaffirms our ego or reaffirms the hierarchy of self that we've created or reaffirms the illusion of separation. If we are creating from that place subconsciously or unconsciously, it can still happen. It still can. There are a lot of people doing that, but
Hmm.
it's not going to be, it's not going to lend to your highest timeline. It's not going to lend to the peace, to the ease, to the, what most people want to get to if you're listening to something like this. Peace mostly, and that's that place of stillness and ease, right? So the why is so important, and the I just think the formula you're sharing, without truly doubling down on the power of your intention, which essentially, like, the modality of your placing your intention into the field is meditation, is practice, is
Hmm.
stillness. Like, that is when we are able to broadcast our intention and we're
Hmm.
able to sift through the resistance. It's when we're creating space, it's when we're still. So, this formula just feels so important to really clarify for people, because
Hmm.
surrender is a loaded word and can be used again to either empower you or to disempower you.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between apathy and surrender.
Mhm.
And so apathy is, I don't have any power, and I'm just life. That's the ultimate kind of experience of life coming at me,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just responding.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a creator. That's really apathy. Surrender, there's something else that wants to come forward here. And sometimes people get confused about this in practice, and I understand why. Because when we're talking about intention, there is this thinking component, right? And then you get into that field experience. And this is where I'm talking about the surrender component comes in. And that's why I say you fall back into it, because it is like a trust fall back in a way, and you emerge into the field. And then that's a different relationship, because when you're in that experience, the thought is the experience. So people can sometimes get a little confused there because they're thinking, oh, I got to place my intention in the field. And it's like, not exactly. Place the intention in your mind, and then you're dialing up the amount of quantum entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to a point to where thought is no longer a component, experience is the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to enter into that higher degree of quantum entanglement, that requires surrender.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really be in those higher levels of consciousness and in the field experience without some pretty high degree of surrender, because you're having to leave thought behind.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a tricky thing to articulate, but I think you're
It
doing a great
is.
job.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. It's a tricky thing to articulate. It sounds very trippy because it is trippy. But once you're in that field experience and you've kind of fallen back into it, the question and the answer exist at the same time.
It's essentially like a dissolution into presence, and I think what we're trying to
Yeah.
do is like
Yeah,
is
we're
like
trying.
doing our best to do
We're doing our best.
is to like break these words down that we hear so often when we talk about
Yeah.
manifestation and so often in spiritual rhetoric, but to really break them down into a more felt experience, into, you know, a deeper understanding, so that essentially just so that we can try and bring it into a more tangible
Mhm.
way of relating to it, versus like, surrender and intention. Like, we hear them, but
Mhm.
how can we actually use these concepts to expand in 2026,
Mhm.
to create, to get to where we want to go, to overcome, the stories and the resistance that have perhaps kept us where we are, kept us small for so long. Like, how can we truly use these concepts to create? So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and the ego really doesn't love surrender. So that can
Hmm.
be why even hearing that word might prickle something up in you.
Right. You might want to roll your eyes.
You might wanna roll your eyes, and you might wanna, like, "Okay, sure, surrender."
Hmm.
And there's a reason why that's a
Hmm.
response. It's because the ego is like, "Well, what are you surrendering?"
Hmm.
"Me." "You're
Yeah.
surrendering
Yeah.
me." And the hierarchy and the thought and the expectations and
Hmm.
who it is that you are. The ego is not a fan of surrender, because you're having to leave it behind, or at least put it to the side a little bit more as your higher self comes forward. And what is the opposite of surrendering? Clinging. That's another way to kind of think
Grasping.
about this. Grasping, clinging, resisting, swimming upstream. Your body will do all kinds of things that it's going to tell you it
Traction.
can't. Contraction. It's not going to surrender. But then I can tell you, and I've talked about this, I think, on the podcast before, eventually the body, when it trusts you enough, it will give itself over to you. And then you'll find a whole new relationship with your body. I'm still in awe of that. I think it was last night, I was in meditation, and I just kind of sat there with my eyes open in the in between state before I came out. And my body was in complete surrender.
Mm.
Awake, still sitting up, but no tension, nothing coming from my body, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense. Just fascinating, right? Because that's the concept of surrender embodied. And that takes some time to get there.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know. It does take time, and it's a felt experience that the more you practice even just sitting and asking what it would feel like to surrender, and
Mhm.
continuing to play with how that feels, energetically, but also somatically, the more you become familiar with it. And now,
Mhm.
like when we're talking about it and we're trying to articulate what it is, what it feels like how to truly embody that, I can similarly think about what it feels like to be in my practice and
Mhm.
to when I've dropped into that place or when I've noticed that I'm feeling really contracted and I take 3 deep breaths and can release and just surrender, I can I have such a clear understanding of that juxtaposition in my body and in my, energetic being, and it feels so good. It feels so,
So good.
so, so good. It's addicting, just like meditation. When you start practicing, it's
Mhm.
addicting to feel that because we're so often living our lives in the opposite. So when we return,
Yeah.
yeah,
When you return to your wholeness, you're like, "Ooh, yeah, I wanna be
that's
here
good.
more."
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a practice, and that's why we talk about it as a practice because it's just something that's discovered and remembered over time. And then when you feel it enough, it becomes like a almost automatic activation when you need to
Mhm.
return there. When you notice that I feel like recently I noticed that I was just in a constant go, just constantly like I hadn't taken a moment to drop in and surrender and I felt my body contracting. I felt, just like I was grasping, like I need to control what's happening.
Mhm.
And the release of that, because I've done it so many times, doesn't take long. It just takes a bringing in my awareness and my
You
intention
have
to
the
it.
tools now,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost automatic. I can switch into a release, total release and a trust.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's a felt thing that takes time and it will feel different. The way you would articulate it once you feel it might feel different for you than we
Mhm.
are, but it's a felt thing.
It's a felt thing, and there's a book recommendation, The Surrender Experiment by
Mm,
Michael Singer. Have you read that?
no.
It's, um it's interesting. It's an interesting account, and there's 2 things that it seems it's interesting we're getting into this concept about conversation about surrender. So he says 2 things that I think might help here. One is surrender doesn't mean you don't have preferences at a high level, right?
Mhm.
He's like, he kind of took that concept of surrender as it applies to your daily life to the next level. And so you kind of watch his life unfold if you were to really surrender to the flow. If you were to just take every wave
Yeah.
and just keep on riding it, you know? And it wasn't that he didn't have preferences. He did, but when those preferences were pushed in another direction, like somebody coming to him and saying, we'd really like to have your help with this new computer program. Not really something he would typically do, but he was like, "Oh, it's coming to me. I'll respond."
Mhm.
And that led into him founding this huge company. And he would have his preferences too, but he wouldn't let his preferences trump his agreement with surrender, if that makes any sense. So that's a really interesting relationship. The other thing that he says that I 100% agree with, that I'm also trying to articulate here, is that if we take a really simplistic approach to moving through different energies, put it that way, if we just think about energetics and assume that you can think of this energy body in front of you, and that energy body has guilt in it, it has some fear in it, it has some lower frequencies and with a mix of higher frequencies. So, whatever your energetic constitution is, you can kind of imagine that in front of you. And this is my own kind of interpretation of what he says. Now, one way to align those energies is through attention to each one of them and to transmute them. That's like the alchemy component, our experience. Another way is to, and I think he uses these exact words, fall back into life in this higher frequency. And as you as a whole move up into this higher frequency, all of the others have to respond. They have to adjust. So if you think about visually, if you want to think about this larger field behind you, this high frequency, just complete surrender which requires heart opening, and you fall back into that, it elevates everything. So you don't need to know the story behind the guilt and the fear.
Mm.
You don't even need alchemy, because the alchemy is the surrender.
Mhm, mhm.
So very heady, but that's kind of another way to think about
Interesting.
transformation.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, very interesting. I'm curious what your word, 'cause you do a word for every year, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your word for 2025?
So I'll walk you through this in a moment. But what we do is kind of find some spaciousness and then plant the intention to receive a word, and then just listen and receive without judgment, because what you get won't necessarily come from your mind, your conscious mind. And so for me this past year, my word was prolific.
Oh.
I know. Interesting, right? Prolific. And that is not a word I would typically use. And so it really kind of caught me by surprise. And it was such a teacher throughout the year. And there's something about what does prolific mean? It means like excelling in many different areas. You're doing many different things. You're prolific. You're a prolific author. You're a prolific entrepreneur. You're a prolific spiritual guide, um, painter, whatever it is that you do, alchemist. It's very expansive. Prolific as a word, as an energy, felt very expansive to me, and also intimidating. I was like, what does that mean? And how can, you
How does
come
that
up against
apply?
your unworthiness. Like, what would it mean to embrace the energy of being prolific? So it gave me a lot to chew on and sit with throughout the year. And it's kind of crazy that we're at the end of the year and looking back on it, and it was before this podcast happened. It was before a lot of things this year have happened. And so, yeah, it was very, very interesting. How about you? Did you have any intentions or?
Yeah, well, my word that came through at the beginning of 2025 was audacious, or
Oh,
like audacity, audacious. And in reflecting, I haven't taken too much time yet. I haven't created this space quite yet to totally reflect on 2025, but just in the in this moment as I reflect, so many moments do I feel like that came through, and so many different
hmm,
chapters and portals I walked through this year that felt like exactly that. That felt like leaning into an edge, and where I had the invitation to embody that, to embody an audacious version of myself. Like, what if I just
what if?
audaciously did this, said yes, sent the email, whatever, did the thing, got
Yeah.
married,
Yeah.
whatever. What if I just did it?
Eloped.
Yeah, with
She
like
did.
2 weeks notice. Like, what if I just did that? And so there were so many micro moments and then bigger portals that I walked through this year that felt exactly like that. And so I'm curious to tune into what is coming through for this next year, because no 2 years are the same. No two
Mm.
energies are the same, no two
Moments. Every
moments.
moment.
No, and I feel like, I don't know, it's interesting that the way we have compartmentalized, or I don't know, broken up time in our dimension, linear time that we created. Like, it's interesting that we break it up into these chunks of 1 year, and we assign like this
Mhm.
container to be its own container. And so no 1 year is the same. And yeah, so I'm interested to tune into what comes through.
Yeah, me too. This is now a good time? We can dive
I think
in?
so. I think it's
Okay.
time.
Let's do it. So, I'll walk you through a very short meditation here. And whatever comes forward for you, I encourage you, like I said, to simply receive it and sit with it and don't judge it. Give it some space to meet you and write it down and then sit with it. And if you want to come back, If you didn't quite get your word or something was confusing for you, always can come back, replay it, see what comes forward. But I will say, usually what pops into your mind first is the perfect thing to receive. All right, so find a nice seated position. Close your eyes when you're ready. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it go through your mouth. And take a moment here just to arrive, calling all of your energy back across all space and time, back to you now. Let your body know that you are safe to experience, to open, to receive. Deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And let your shoulders drop a little bit more. Tuck your chin slightly. Reach up tall through the top of your head. And imagine your mind as a container of water. And I want you to tip that container forward, allowing some water to pour out through the front of your mind. And as it does, you're just releasing any thoughts, any heaviness, any anxiety. And now tilt that water container to the side, maybe to the left, allowing more to release, tilting it towards the right, allowing more to release, and tilting it towards the back until you feel clear, calm, present, powerful. Deep breath in through your nose, soft release through your mouth. Notice the space between your eyebrows. Maybe you can sense some prickling, some cold, some heat, some sensation between your eyebrows, inviting your third eye to open while your other biological eyes are closed. Activating that capacity of knowing without needing a reason to know, of seeing beyond this dimension. And feel your body, the space around you, start to fall away as you expand into deep space, into the void. Surrendering deeper and deeper and deeper. And noticing infinite space above you, below you, behind you, and in front of you. Hanging in this void. Opening your heart space. Letting love move through you and to you. Connecting deeper and expanding further. Setting the intention into this field in all directions to receive the energy for 2026, a word that encapsulates an experience that's calling to you. Whatever first comes to you is perfect. But sitting for a moment in silence, in this space, receiving with your heart open. And when you feel complete, responding to the field with gratitude, appreciation for what you've received. And surrendering fully to the experience in gratitude. And starting to call yourself back across space and time, back into this dimension, back into your body, back into your seat. Deep breath in through your nose and soft exhale through your mouth. Left hand over your heart space as you settle deeper and deeper back into your body. Breathing into your hand. Breathing into your belly. Arriving with new information from the field into this space and time. And when you're ready, opening your eyes, coming back into your space. Grabbing your journal if you have it nearby. Without any judgment, just writing down what came forward. Whatever it was, whether it was a word, an experience, a vision. And trusting what came forward.
Thank you for guiding that.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always interesting how it comes forward. It's always different.
Yeah, what I thought, like a word came through before we did the practice, and I was like,
Mm,
that's the word that's gonna
that's the word.
totally different word came through. And I was like,
Interesting.
yeah, like before we started, before we dropped in, I was like,
Hmm.
that's gonna be it. And then totally different.
Interesting.
I know, which is
Do you
cool.
want to sit with it or do you want to share it?
I can share it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna, probably do that practice again and see what happens. But before I thought the word was gonna be nurture, just because that's where
Mm.
I'm really like, I don't know, I'm just feeling really called. That's been activated in me more so recently and nurturing different aspects of myself, but also other ways of interpreting that in my life. But so I went in thinking like that'll probably be it. And then when we were in meditation, dream came through, which I was like, okay, interesting. It was because I was just so open. I was just like a blank palette. And I could feel like dra. And then dream came through, which for me is feeling more like dare to dream, like
Mm.
r- allow for your dreams to manifest. I think dream has almost like a I don't know, negative connotation, but this like like, "Oh, you're daydreaming," or it's this like, "Oh, it's
Mm.
impossible to bring into reality." It's like it's a dream. It's too expansive, it's too big. And yeah, so for me, that feels like, you know, you're bring your dreams into this world.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the dream, we hear a lot of that when we're younger, but as we get older, we hear less and less of it.
Yeah.
And the dream state is that in between astral experience between
Mhm.
consciousness and subconsciousness. And I don't think that dreams, even the sleep state, are just dreams. I think they're another realm to explore, a very real realm to move through consciousness and explore. And then the concept of dreaming, which is
Mhm.
really what we're talking about, like where does inspiration come from? Through
Mhm.
dreaming, through daring to dream, to think
Right.
bigger, to open yourself up to being inspired by yourself
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
and by the world and by life.
Yeah, and
There's
I
a
think
there's a magical component to it, which I love.
really, and I think so many of us are in a way like scared to dream, because we've been
Yeah,
told that to be realistic, to
totally.
and
Yeah.
just so many of us just starve ourselves of dreaming. And so, yeah, I loved that.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you. I love it.
You wanna do you wanna share what came through for you or hold it?
When I'm guiding, it's a little bit tricky
Totally. Yeah.
to
It's
receive.
different. Yeah.
I will say that what I did see was really cute, and I saw everybody that will do this practice in the void. So I saw little
Cool.
pops of consciousness and seated people in the void connecting to their energy together. So that was
Really.
received.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for guiding that.
My pleasure. That's a fun one. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for journeying with us today. I hope that was really helpful. I would love to hear what your word is. If you want to drop it in the
Mhm.
comments, let us know.
Yeah.
And I promise you, even if that word doesn't make any sense now, the cool thing about this is it will probably start to make more sense through the year. And remember, the container that we set here is the year container. So that is a lot of possibility, right? So there's something cool about this because we're not talking about tomorrow, even though tomorrow can be anything, but we're talking about this bigger container. So give yourself a little bit of space to kind of sit with it and see how it evolves with you because it will evolve with you. Stay
Yeah.
open and curious. All right. Well, Kat, thank you. This was really fun today.
Yeah.
I think another thing to mention before we sign off is we have, I think at this point, 6 spots left for our retreat in April in Joshua Tree. We'll do meditation, Kriya, lectures, workshops, breath work, interdimensional connection work out in the desert. And join us if you feel called. Reach out if you have any questions. We would love to have you.
We
And we
would.
will see you. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.